Thank you for joining us here on XY Spark. This is your boy Rolando. We are so excited today. We have a special guest that is going to be joining us on this platform. We have none other than Alan Baker. Alan is an amazing human being, very busy bee, and so he has given us the time to come and be a part of the XY Spark conversation. Alan, welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on.
Great. Alan, as I've been doing my research and looking at guests, I noticed that, you do some powerful work. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what you do.
Well, I am primarily known as a professional martial artist. I've been in the martial arts for over 40 years, teaching since the early 90s. That's what I've spent the majority of my time doing. I also do a lot of diving. I'm a diving instructor. I'm a rappel master and rappel master instructor, shooting instructor. I'm involved in a lot of different things that this industry has pulled me into over the years.
Wow, wow. A martial artist. So guys, if you want to learn some martial arts, Alan is the man to go to. Okay. Tell me, how did you get into that field? You have so many years, you said. What moved you to that field?
Oh, I was a rowdy youth. And, at that time, they would refer to my superpower as ADHD. And at that time, they would want to drug you to slow you down at school. My
Mhm.
parents refused and they looked for other avenues to handle the energy. And fortunately for me, they took me to the local martial arts school. And I loved it immediately because I got to go there and be rowdy. What I
Yeah.
would normally get in trouble for at school, inside the martial arts academy, I didn't get in trouble for. And then the instructor at the time started to introduce me to a pathway in life to pursue growth and improvement just outside of a physical expression of combat.
Wow. Wow. I like the way you referred to it. Alan said, they called his superpower ADHD. Never heard it like that, Alan. That's a sweet way to look at it. Because there's so many parents now who they have kids who have been diagnosed with ADHD, and these kids, they live within that label where I'm ADHD, and there's some adults now as well. There are men now who may be listening to this podcast, Alan, who they say, hey, I have ADHD, and it's a struggle. But now I see where your parents has sort of guided you into that place where you found a mentor. I think that's what I hear you're saying, that you got some good mentorship. How important is mentorship for men to as we go through this? Do we need to
Oh,
have any kind of mentorship?
wow. You asked the right person about that. I actually, I'm writing a second book, and one of the major sections in it is on mentorship and the power of it. In my opinion, mentorship is the most powerful source of information you can find. I mean, I know you can go read a book, you can listen to a DVD on something, but there's nothing like a living, breathing mentor, especially one that is properly chosen. And if you get a good one, it'll have such a huge influence on your life and the skills you teach yourself, where you go, and what you achieve. So, completely agree with that.
Wow. Alan, there's this tendency in us as men. I know it already.
Ah,
Okay, I got this, I know it. And uh because when I hear mentorship, it calls for some vulnerability, eh? It calls for us to sort of open ourselves up and take instructions from somebody else who can not forcing us to be like them, but to sort of be that guide. Is that, how does that help me? I mean, even in my own way, how does that help me to grow? How has it helped you to pave that path?
well, on the surface, a good mentor, you're going to choose them due to the topic that you're wanting to pursue. So you're going to get knowledge. And I say choose the right one. If you find a creative mentor, not one that is just reflecting light, but they are creating light. They're out there doing things other people aren't doing. And that's going to be the mentor that is changing the industry. There's not many of them.
Mm.
If you find him, you will not only get good information, but you will get cutting edge information. Additionally, those types of personalities will produce passion, not only in themselves, but they will produce it in you, motivation. They will challenge you, they will push you. They're not just going to give you information. And equally, it is a relationship between both of you. A good mentor will look for a good student because as once you reach to a certain position, one of the major sources of growth is to teach and give information because it'll force that mentor to go into higher levels. He'll have to research more information. He'll have to answer your questions. So it is an interactive relationship. It's not just a one-way thing. And I think those power mentors, those creators of light, they know that. So they're looking for those types of students, those types of interactions. So it's up to us when we are seeking those mentors. We have to step up our game too, because
Yeah.
we have a part of the load to carry in the relationship.
Wow, that's powerful, and why I started there with the mentoring, Alan, as I listened to your story, you got good mentoring where you were able to channel that energy, your superpower, using
Yeah.
your own words. Okay, you were able to channel your superpower into a place where now you have been doing it for so many years. You say over 3 decades. So tell me, how has your work and what are some of the things that you have seen as you work with men as a martial artist?
Oh, well, we spend a lot of time on the mat. Um, Most of the students that I'll have at the academy or that I coach outside the academy, they'll be training a couple times a week. And one of the unique things about the academy culture is it creates opportunity for growth. Um, you will be challenged emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. You'll have little challenges that'll pop up on the mat. Then, you may not necessarily handle them appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
They may handle you.
Yeah.
For instance, you may have an emotional problem
Yeah.
that you don't necessarily handle very well.
Mm-hmm.
So when those opportunities come up, you have an opportunity, or the teacher, if he's a good guide or teacher, will suggest principles and methodology to handle it better. And
Mm.
that in turn can help you outside the academy. A lot of those lessons and skills that will come up, really, in my experience, more often on the academy floor than in real life, which
Mm-hmm.
was great because I got a lot of practice in. So when I was challenged in real life, it was, oh, it's just the same thing that happened when I was sparring in the
Mm-hmm.
academy.
Mm-hmm.
I already know how to handle this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the main things that I see as far as growth from a lot of students.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, as men, Alan, naturally, emotions is not something that society allow us to express.
Mm.
Okay, we are allowed to express certain form, okay, of emotions. It's okay for us to be angry. It's okay for us to, be that big cheerleader when you go to that hockey game or so. But certainly emotional displays were not allowed. In your work, how have you seen any of that?
Oh, I see that on a regular basis. Pretty much the entire spectrum. We'll get certain personalities that'll come into the academy and they know everything. And
Mm,
they may weigh 200 pounds and get teamed up with somebody that's 100 pounds and then just get a life changing event.
mm,
And I've seen them handle it in many different ways. And, that's okay.
mhm,
You can't avoid dealing with those type of situations inside the academy. Just like in life, you could be a tough guy for a while, but life will deliver something that'll
Mm-hmm.
eventually force you to deal with it. So it's okay to deal with those things. It's actually, in my opinion, for me, the academy was a great place to help hone those things, those abilities,
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to handle them. So yes, that is something I commonly see.
Wow. Alan, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit to ask you, can you recall any success story of a male, a youth, or that you've worked with who came in and they were really struggling to now they've found their niche, they're living their best life, they're more grounded. Do you have any success story like that to share? Because it's important for us to help our listeners to kind of get some real life, in your own story to help them to understand the value of working on personal development.
One of them that sticks out to me, I travel a lot. So I'm either on a plane or I'm driving somewhere almost every weekend to teach seminars, coaching, that type of thing. And I was coming through Knoxville, Tennessee, and I decided to stop for dinner. And eating dinner, and I noticed this grown man, suit, very nicely dressed. And you could tell when someone is looking at you. And he was walking toward me in the restaurant, and I'm like, man, I don't recognize this guy, but he obviously recognizes me. So he comes up and he's like, Sifu, um, which is the title I have in the school. And he tells me his name, and I'm at first I didn't place him, but after a while I realized the last time I saw him, he was like 6.
Wow.
And uh,
Wow.
then I immediately remembered who he was. He was a challenged youth at the time,
Hmm.
and went through the same process that a lot of the kids went through in that class. And now he was a very successful attorney in that town. And I remember the story because he stood there and gave me credit for giving him the skills and to make it to that point. And it was a powerful thing for me. I mean, even to
Wow.
this day, I think of that and it's like, damn, that was very cool. So over the years, I've actually seen a lot of that. So a lot of the guys that have gone to the school, the kids are now doing things I never would have imagined. And it's pretty common. I've always taught the universal principles of change, is what I call them, on the edge of the mat or in between the class. It's never really been something on the curriculum. But all the guys in the class know what that is. And being after teaching over time, I have had many come back and go, you know what, those have done more for me in life than the ability just to make a punch or to
Mhm.
grapple, do a takedown, which,
Mhm.
yes, it's one of the more powerful uh, give backs that I get from teaching.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Alan. Because right now, as I do my own work in therapy and stuff, more and more, Alan, I'm realizing that today in 2021, it's hard to be a balanced male. There's a lot of pressure to be a man, especially a good man, a grounded man, a stable man. And and so, as I'm here with you, do you have any tips that you would want to share that would empower some of our listeners about, hey, here are some things that would be useful for you as it relates to being a healthy male and staying grounded?
Um, Take the time to take 1,000 mile view of your life. A lot of times, especially high achievers, get caught up in living life and they don't take the time to back up and look at it as a whole and make decisions based on that. One of the principles I teach, I call the master filter. And we use that filter to make decisions and choose directions. And the 4 basic things we take a look at it. One is your freedom, your finance, your family, and your health. So when I'm going to make a decision, I'll back up and I'll say, how does this decision affect these four things? And for instance, it may be a amazing business opportunity and everything about it looks perfect. But then after I back up and take a look at the master filter, I realize that I'm going to give up a lot of freedom um, over the course of time. And I look at the structure of the journey of this business and realize that I will not be multiplied at any point. So I'm pretty much creating a job for myself.
Mhm.
So based on that, that might be a no. So have some source of reference that you can use that'll make you have that 1,000 mile view and make those decisions, because you have to have a blueprint for life. You have to create it, and it has to be able to adjust
Mhm.
because things are going to happen. So
It's powerful that you said that, Alan. You just finished on a note that you said blueprint. As a psychotherapist, I've just created a program that I refer to as the masculinity blueprint.
ah,
Now, this program that I've created is for men who are ready to invest in themselves and work on finding that niche, recovering from whatever is going on in their lives to becoming the best version of themselves. So it's so interesting that you use that word. I had to throw that in there, free publicity. But it's
certainly.
great, it's finding that and working through that. So Alan, let me ask you this. How do you balance all of this? Because you sound like you're a busy guy. We're talking about healthy masculinity. And a lot of us as men, we are guilty of, running on this consistent cycle where I'm for later. I'll pay attention to myself later. I pay attention to my sleep, how I eat. You're a martial artist, so maybe you exercise every day. But I'll pay attention to my spiritual life later. Now I have to focus. So how do you balance that?
Um, I, I plan very well. Like for instance, I can tell you what my study habits are going to be for the next year. I know how my morning routine is going to change over the course of the next 6 months to fit what I have on the schedule.
Mhm.
Um, and like I said, I direct my superpower. I keep pretty busy. An example that shocks most people is I haven't really owned a TV since the early 90s. I don't have the ability to sit down long enough to do it. So I spend my time as wisely as I can, and focusing in the directions that I want to achieve, which could include sleep, proper sleep. I think that you have to take a look at everything you're doing and look at how to better it. Study how to improve those things that are going to affect you on a daily basis. The way you breathe, the way you sleep, the way you eat, the way you train. It all can come back and affect you. And accordingly will affect what you are able to achieve.
Wow, wow, that's powerful. Alan, it's important, and I asked you that question because the culture that we are in now, by virtue of societal expectations, most men, we are expected to work to bring in the big bucks. There are some men who there are men in their 30s or 40s now, and they're going through a crisis because they feel like they're underachieving. They feel like
Mm.
they're not reaching their goals. They're experiencing depression because this pandemic that has happened now for the past 18 months or 16 months and counting. And so they struggle with that, and that balance, it sort of goes out the window. And a lot of people live their lives on this cycle: work, eat, sleep, shower when I can. So it's that cycle. And I ask you that because I want to really put forward how powerful it is for us as men to have balance. So let's move to another part of our conversation, Alan. And what I'd like to ask you now is, um, in your own work as a martial artist and as a coach, what have you seen as some of the greatest hurdles for men to really develop or build or become their best selves? What have you seen men who are very resistant? Have you seen guys who like, no, I don't want to do that, or that's not for me? Have you seen any cultural things that you've noticed? What have you seen as some of the bigger barriers as you work with men?
One that has stood out probably in the last 5 to 10 years is all of the noise that we have to deal with on a daily basis. Social media, the cell phone, the TV, the radio, things that have become part of our environment and has become normalized, but may not, it varies according to the opinion, but may not be normal. You have to look at, you only have so much energy or focus that is available to you mentally.
Mhm.
Um, yes, there are ways to improve it, but there are also ways to not waste it. So for me, a lot of the guys I work with when I'm coaching now, that's one of the first things they'll have to take a look at is just how much wasted mental energy they have on a daily basis.
Mhm.
And they don't even know. It's like they're so fatigued and wore out at the end of the day. They don't have energy to go and do that extra thing or that one extra habit that's going to make real change. So even before deciding what those habits are, generally we'll address that lack of energy and different ways to turn off the outgoing energy so that once we start to collect it, it's going to change the amount you have, obviously, on a daily basis, and you'll be able to start intelligently with a plan, focusing it in the direction you want to go.
Mhm.
But most guys in the beginning, no clue. They're just, I'm tired. I don't know why. Let's have another cup of coffee. And
Yes. Yeah. 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 Wow. Thank you. That's powerful because when you look at it, I find one of the things I've observed in my practice is as men, oftentimes we wait until we hit rock bottom
mm,
before we step up and say, wait a minute, something is off here. I need to get my act together, and I'm not sure why most of us wait. And as I do my own research and I'm continuing to do my own research, I'm recognizing that there are so many different things. For example, there are guys who are struggling, but they're afraid to say they're struggling because of what their partner is going to think of them. So they
mhm.
don't come out and say anything. Okay, because what will my woman think of me if she hears me saying that I'm struggling? I'm a man, I'm supposed to be tough, supposed to be strong, you're a martial artist. You know, does that prevent you from recognizing that, hey, there's something going on here in my emotional space that I need to address? So I love what you just said, which is, there are really sometimes men who they just need to recognize it, do that check-in. And how do you coach someone to get to that space?
Well, we will usually, I'll have them keep a journal of what they do on a daily basis.
Mm,
The average time I usually have them do it is about a month before, most of the clients I work with will do it on a monthly basis. And we'll come back and take a look at that, and one of the things we're looking at are the people that you surround yourself with.
mm,
What are their personality types? What are they accepting? And helping create as a normal thing around you.
mm,
And that's a hard decision to make sometimes. And it's a hard thing to realize is that you are directly influenced by the personalities that you have around you on a daily basis. So, how do I handle that? I turn them up, I turn them down, I get closer, I make distance. So that would be an example of some of the things we would take a look at inside the 30-day journal: the amount of food, and then what kind of food you're eating to directly affect energy stores. Certain foods are going to drain more from you just because they're more difficult to digest.
Mhm.
Um, Breathing has been a huge thing. I obviously study a lot of it in qigong and martial arts, and to me, the breath in this last book and in the book we're finishing up now, I use the term quite often. The breath is the bridge. It really is the trigger that is connected to a lot of change.
Mhm.
It also will directly affect the amount of energy you'll have on a daily basis. We normally just ignore it. And a lot of the guys that I start coaching and teaching how to do different breathing processes, within 2 weeks, they're coming back and like, man, I'm usually tired by 2 p.m. And that's starting to change. So those are just some examples of the things that we'll visit. Usually when we get a look at the 30-day cycle, we'll choose the ones that are having the most influence and start to polish those first.
Mhm.
And then over the course of time, you gradually are making adjustments to different areas to not only build more of that daily energy, but to keep it and not give it away or let it leak due to the wrong personality,
Mhm. Mhm.
location, so
Yeah,
on and so
yeah.
forth.
Wow. And that's powerful. You said that you have men that you're coaching doing journaling. There are some guys who are going to be so resistant to that. Like, man, I'm not doing that journaling thing. That's what my sister did. That's what my mom, and I talk real talk here, Alan, because
Yep.
these are some of the things that men say. You want me to go writing? I don't have time to write. But I hear you're saying that for those you have worked with who have taken the time to do that 30-day journal, they have seen good results.
Hmm.
So I want guys, I hope you're taking notes here, man. We didn't bring Alan here just for the sake of talking. Take notes. He's saying that a part of the thing that he's found to help a lot of men is do that 30-day journaling to sort of do what we call an activity logging, food they eat and stuff. So that's huge. That's great. Thank you so much, Alan, for sharing that. Alan, where can any of my listeners find you? How could they connect with you? Because it sounds like you're doing some powerful stuff.
I've got a couple of websites. My personal website is sifualanbaker.com. Then it is sifualanbaker.com.
Mhm.
The academy, located just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. It's called the Atlanta Martial Arts Center. So those are probably the two most commonly used social media platforms, on
Mhm.
Facebook, Instagram as well.
Wow. And what should someone expect from you? What kind of programs, what kind of commitment would someone need to make if they say, hey, I want to connect with Alan? What duration would they need to commit to? And what would they expect to receive from working with you?
I've got clients that work in many different ways. Some weekly, some monthly. I have some guys that I work with quarterly. It was actually a sizable group that's just quarterly, and we do the same things. Most of those guys are higher achievers, so you give them a task list and they're on it. And that's just when we sit down and do what we're doing right now. But I may get a text. I'm pretty available to the clients, and that they'll have a question, something that's come up that's a little different than what they expected. So I'm in communication with them pretty regularly, and it would
Great.
depend on the goals. Some I have many that, for instance, their goal is just to become a professional martial artist. How do I start a business? And all the way up to guys that have nothing to do with the combat arts that are just looking to use the universal principles to create great change in life.
Mhm. Wow. Alan, you know what, man? We're not going to keep you. We know you're a busy guy, but I just want to tell you we appreciated the time that you gave to us here on XY Spark. We appreciate the work that you're doing. Great job. We appreciate also as a male, we appreciate how you have been, um, displaying a healthy masculinity in four forms that you mentioned, the physical, the social, the psychological, and the spiritual. That's powerful because that's something that we continue to reiterate here in XY Spark, that as men, we have to pay attention to these four foundational principles. So thank you so much, Alan, for being here. Is there any parting words that you'd like to leave before we wrap up our interview, Alan?
Go get it.
Go get it,
Get
guys.
out there and make some change. Ignore the naysayers. Don't pay attention to what anybody thinks or says.
Yes,
It
yes,
comes down to you and life. None of
yes.
that other stuff matters. So take the time to sit down, take a look at what you're doing, make a plan, and move forward in your way.
Thank you, Alan Baker. We just had on his word. Listen what he says. Go get it. That's what we're going to leave with you. As usual, this is your boy Rolando with XY Spark, and we continue to reiterate that we believe that there is a spark in you.